A much anticipated season in Lincoln, a new defensive coordinator, a new quarterback. Same old analyst, though. That's because we can't do any better than Matt Davison. Frankly, he's the best in the business when it comes to talking Huskers. He joins us now from our studio in Lincoln. Matt, welcome.
Same old guy, right?
Yeah.
Same old guy.
But
That's all I have to work with, man.
In a good way. Let me ask you this. It felt like when we were there that this was a little bit of a reboot for Nebraska, that, you know, Mike Riley's finally going to get to run the offense that he wants to run, get his quarterback who's a little better fit. And again, you give him a lot of credit for doing what he did with Tommy Armstrong. He hired a new defensive coordinator. Do you get the sense, too, that this is finally going to be the program that Mike Riley wants it to be?
I think so, and I think the word reboot might kind of scare some Husker fans when you say that. So I don't know if it's a total reboot, Dave, but obviously you look at both sides of the ball, and schematically there's going to be some major changes going from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defensively, and then just the skill set of these quarterbacks. You look at Tommy Armstrong, a dual threat guy, and then Tanner Lee, a pocket passer, a pro-style guy that fits what Danny Langsdorf and Mike Riley want to do a whole lot better than what Tommy did, really. And so schematically you're going to see some changes for sure, but culturally, which is a big part of changing a program, as you know, I think Mike Riley has done a great job of that the first 2 years. Now heading into year 3, I think he has been able to instill into his players the culture that he wants, the things that are important to him. And so from that standpoint, I think he's done a great job.
I would agree. And he said the same thing when we were there, and we kind of brought up this notion of, to a certain extent, starting over. And he said, well, the beauty of it is that we have a couple recruiting classes of guys that we wanted. As you said, we've instituted our culture. So you're ahead of where that term might imply, kind of to what you were saying there. You mentioned schematic changes in Bob Diaco, and that is significant. How big an adjustment do you think that is from getting used to the new scheme for the players and also to, you know, the new positions that guys have to play? How big of a change do you think that is going to the odd man fronts?
Well, I think it is a big change. You have Bob Diaco that's going to take over as defensive coordinator, and then you have 2 other new coaches defensively as well. So there's a lot of new coaches defensively, and you have some players like Josh Kalu that moved from corner to safety. Nebraska lost Chris Jones, their best corner in the offseason. Who knows if he'll be back at all this year or not. So there are some challenges defensively for sure, but what Bob Diaco brings to this defense is energy. He brought it to the practice field. He brought it in the spring. He brought it this fall, and our guys love it. You know, they love how he has them flying around to the ball, and I think you're going to see a lot of different looks from this defensive front. One of the main things Nebraska has to do a better job this year is getting after the quarterback. Didn't do a great job of that last year. I think going to a 3-4 will give Bob Diaco some more options on how to bring pressure and how to mix things up defensively. I think the guys defensively like that. I think they like the different looks that they can bring to an offense. And so, although it's a big change, the biggest thing, no matter where you line guys up, is trying to get them to believe in the system, trying to get them to play fast and to just run and make plays. And that's where I think Bob Diaco is going to be at his best. I think he's going to get these guys to play hard. I think he's going to get them to play fast. And so I think, although schematically it's a big change, I think the guys are really going to like it.
Let's turn our attention to the offense. And let me just say right off the top, I think Tanner Lee's really good. I thought he was really good when we were there last year, the year he was not eligible to play because of transferring. We saw him again this year. I think he's improved significantly. That being said, it just feels like there's so much pressure being put on him, Matt. Do you think there's too much pressure on Tanner Lee?
Well, I think he can live up to that pressure. I really do. But unfortunately for him, you know, there's been so much attention around him the last 7 or 8 months, maybe more. And that's nothing that he asked for. It's just that people see him in practice. Media types see him in practice, and they see the skill sets that he has. I mean, he's 6'4", 225 pounds, and physically he can do all the things that you want a quarterback to do in this offense, which is stand in the pocket, deliver the football. He does all those things in practice better than anybody I've seen that's had a Nebraska uniform on. He can make all the throws. It seems like he processes the offense very well. He seems to have a great head on his shoulders. But all that said, he hasn't played at this level yet. And so I would have liked it if he could have, you know, surprised some people and said, hey, you know, he came out here and put up some numbers and people said, hey, this kid might be pretty good. Instead, we all assume that he's going to be really good. And as we know, it takes a lot more than just his skill set to be a good offense. We have to block for him. We have to have, a running game that matches this passing game. And so Tanner Lee is a great start. And obviously you have to have a good quarterback to be successful in football. And I think he has all the physical skill sets to do those things. Hopefully the guys around him play well. And if they do, I think he's going to have a really nice season.
Matt, based on what you've seen the last couple of years and the changes in personnel coming up this year, how do you see the West race panning out?
Well, every year you look at it and you say, okay, let's look at the schedules of some of these teams. And I've done that as many people have over this offseason. And I think you have to give Wisconsin the upper hand. Obviously, they've won a lot of games over the last decade or two. And so you put them at the top. I think you start with Wisconsin. And then 2, 3, 4, I think people talk about Iowa, Nebraska, and Northwestern is a trendy pick. As I look at schedules right now, I think you have to tip your hat to Iowa and what they've done the last few years. They've beat Nebraska 2 years in a row. They beat Nebraska 3 out of 4, and Nebraska's only win was in overtime in Iowa City 3 years ago. So I think you give the upper hand to Iowa right now, and then I put Nebraska at 3 and probably Northwestern at 4 because Northwestern comes to Lincoln this fall. So that's how I see it shaking out, but I think we all know it's probably going to come down to just a couple of games and could easily come down to a head-to-head matchup, and that's probably how the West is going to shake out. But you look at the schedules overall, and Wisconsin definitely, to me, has the upper hand.
He is the voice of the Huskers as the color analyst both on football and on basketball. Matt Davison joining us, as he always does every year here on BTN. Matt, thanks a lot for your time, and looking forward to another season of Talking Nebraska and Big Ten with you.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Thanks a lot.